Oh, welcome back to another fantastic episode of I'm Gonna Talk and You're Gonna Listen. I'm your host, Chance Paladin, and I'm just getting things set up here, getting comfy. I want you to get comfy too. We'll all get comfy together. Figure out our sitting situations. All right, let's do some housekeeping. First of all, mash that like button and that subscribe button and the notification bell button because YouTube's amazing. And leave a comment down below of answering for asking a random thing throughout the show. Yeah, okay. Now that we've got that out of the way. Housekeeping. So the art book that I've promised to work on is probably about 80% done, going through the final design work now. All the art's added. And yeah, and album number 2 has all the songs added. And I just got to throw some art on it. And excuse me. All right. And Fanny 2 is still in process. But that's going to take a little bit of a backseat. I actually kind of have a rhythm I think worked out now. Where, I've got probably about a month of decent weather left to homestead. And the art book and the album are just way easier to work on. And then I'll write through the more yucky weather when I can't homestead. So the working on the music is like way more of a vibe. And so that's like the kind of the summer vibe I need. Where I can write in really short bursts, but like editing is kind of okay, but writing is certainly a challenge. Whereas like the art and the music are like a really nice vibe for the homesteading. I can make the music and then go homestead to the music. And as soon as I can feel when the album like hits a certain peak, when I can just like homestead for hours and hours and hours, and the music's just like solid. So I'm there with that second album, so I'll be releasing that shortly. So I think that's all the news. And so producer Paladin, roll the intro.
Found a bunker deep in the woods. Supply stacked high, it feels so good. Hiding out neath the leafy hood. Gonna help others try to get through.
All right. So topic number 1. I want to specify before I start with topic number 1. Not only do the usual disclaimers apply, but there's a new framework that I want you to apply moving forward that would make me feel better, which is everything I'm about to say for the duration of the main topics all exists in a purely fictional universe. And I'm definitely not talking about any real events or any real anything. This is all a fictional parallel universe. All right? So by listening any further, you accept that. This is all fictional. So Anyway, I'm an author. This is all fiction. So I want to talk about a fictional alternate universe where a certain cartel has taken over several cities, at least several parts of several cities, and they're doing the worst of the worst to people in apartment complexes, and it's been going on for a while. And this isn't new information, but it's hit what I'll call like the normie. It's hit like the normie mainstream, and I want to talk about a lot of different aspects of this fictional thing that happened. So first I want to talk about the cartels. Again, fictional cartels, so no real cartels should get mad at me because I'm talking about fictional cartels. Plus, I know real cartels aren't watching YouTube videos. So, because they're busy doing real cartel things. So, these fictional cartels are doing the worst of the worst, and they have been for a long time. But finally, some people caught them on video. And more people are interviewing and more people are digging, and then the fictional, government in charge of those areas, the city, state, local, county leadership said it was all fake, did a show of force, interviewed everybody, said it was a big nothing burger. Okay. Obviously that's not true, but it doesn't really matter what's true or not. What matters is how it can be portrayed. So everything calms down for a few days, few weeks. In the meantime, some idiots start a absolutely bogus rumor that a fictional motorcycle club that I won't name. I'm not going to name the fictional cartel, and I'm not going to name the fictional motorcycle club because they actually do watch YouTube videos, and I don't want to piss them off either. Some people stupidly said they're going to come kick your butt. Ugh. Now, first of all, the fictional cartel doesn't watch YouTube, so they wouldn't know this anyway. So that's should have been flag number 1. Flag number 2, motorcycle clubs don't go do that unless something is actively happening to people directly related to them, or if their territory is being encroached on. Neither of those things are true. So immediately everybody should have collectively debunked this and stopped muddying the water. But the internet is stupid, and conservatives, left and right and center and so-called preppers, everybody that should know better, a lot of people that should know better repeated this, and they repeated it long after it was debunked, which is kind of how a troll works. It like self-perpetuates and re-emerges over and over and over again. So it's not true, because this is all in a fictional universe anyway. But I want to talk about why it matters whether it's true or not. It is the equivalent of saying, my dad's going to come beat you up, which is also stupid because that doesn't work either, and it never did. But wishing that some other gang is going to come take care of your gang problem isn't a solution. Not only is it not a solution, but that threat only works if there's some kind of historical significance of it actually happening, which there isn't. Motorcycle clubs don't go fix people's problems. And furthermore, law enforcement, this fictional law enforcement in this other universe I'm talking about, they're only going to protect the bad guys. This fictional cartel is there on purpose. They're there by design. They were allowed there. They were approved to be there. They aren't illegal. They're not illegals. They are there by design. It is sanctioned. This civil unrest is sanctioned by the powers that be. So you're wishing for one criminal gang to come forcefully remove people that, oh, by the way, even if it did happen, nobody's gonna come support them, this fictional biker gang. Nobody's gonna come out and support them and cheer them on and thank them, because it's going to be horrible and brutal and violent and disgusting. And history has shown over and over and over that every time a group has come, the local population, even conservatives, are absolutely detest violence. And they are just raging, pathetic, pussy weaklings that can't handle their own problems, which is why they have a problem to begin with. So whenever there is violence, they're disgusted and appalled by it, which in and of itself is okay. It is a natural human instinct to be appalled by violence. However, measured violence, this is a James Yeager-ism, and probably others too. You know, if you have measured violence, it's called force. You are meeting force with force. And one could argue how many punches when somebody already looks to be down. You know, there can be some debate about that. You know, that's what happened in Methchester in the airport. You know, cop gal, there's video of it all. In this fictional universe, this cop gal got punched in the nose, and then the optics of what happened after that look bad. But that's all it is optics, right? People, no matter how much the optics exist in plain black and white and color, already have their minds made up. Everything that happened in fictional Israel when October 7th, there's video of all of it. Every single second of every single horrible thing that happened, because they videotaped everything and they were all wearing body cameras and GoPros. Every single second of every single atrocity is recorded. It's just not all going to be released. The optics are horrible. And also respecting the family's privacies and such. A universe exists where the optics are so bad that the truth will never get out, because the backlash would be too horrible. And it's like that with all of the race baiting that goes on in the world. The powers that be in this fictional universe only let very, very, very measured levels of race baiting videos come out. The real things that happen are 100 times more horrible. Unspeakable horrors that you cannot unsee. And if you're wondering what optics has to do with all of this, that's what temporarily bit the cartels in the ass. The fictional cartels. Some video got out in this alternate universe where some of the things that they were doing are on video. But, only just enough to where, some shadow could kind of be thrown, maybe, which is all lies, because obviously, like, another video and another video. And you ask yourself, like, what's really going on is a measure of 10 to 100 magnitude worse. Every horrible thing that you can imagine is worse. And the cartels are the worst of the worst. Again, the problem, I'm going to reiterate the problem again. You want a biker gang to come fix this, but you wouldn't support them even if they did. And the threat of a biker gang showing up is meaningless when there's no historical context for that ever happening. It's about the same as saying the dinosaur is going to come save your subdivision or your apartment complex. A dinosaur, like, would that be crazy? It would be crazy, but within minutes, everybody would immediately sympathize with the people who are now being brutalized by a T-Rex. Because that's how the human race is. Actual people with real sympathy are going to be immediately appalled at the violence and side with whoever's getting their ass kicked. There's problem number 3, though. There is a very real possibility that the fictional motorcycle gang just gets absolutely mopped up. And I want to tell you why that is. They don't usually fight near peer adversaries because the losses would just be too high. And they know that. They're extremely practical people. They're respectable, practical, reasonable people. They understand business and logistics, and they're very respectful. The fictional version of me has dealt with them a lot of times, just because several of them coexist in my fictional universe. The cartels are not. They're prior military, or they are hyper militant prison gangs, or both. Like, they don't have any qualms over fighting near peer adversaries, number one. And number two, they have nearly infinite resources and people. And if you are all alone, that should terrify you. And if you have even a tiny group, that should instill a level of respect, not for them, but respect for the situation. It would take a whole town or a whole apartment complex. It's the whole, I feel like I've talked about this before, that, the ants versus the grasshoppers. The only difference here is, like, there's a million ants and there's also like a million grasshoppers. Now, they are looking for soft, weak targets. But that doesn't mean that they would have no problem fighting a near-peer adversary. If even these big biker gangs, fictionally, wanted to survive, they would have to either draw them in and completely annihilate them somehow, and then be able to hit back really, 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 really fast. Which they can't do because the resources are coming in from outside of the US. or they would have to build a biker castle somewhere and just hide in it, and then very cautiously do patrols. And another YouTuber, I'm forgetting his name all of a sudden, but he's not going to be mad, I think. I think it was one or two YouTubers I watched. They said that the biker gangs don't care about the border. And they would have to start caring about the border very, very, very quickly. Because even if somehow they cleared out an enclave or two, if they don't know where the root cause is, and they'll do X, Y, Z and extract the information. Okay, but it's still outside the US. Like, okay, you're still... This is only the beginning. This is going to be the biggest war of attrition, even if you're only counting the cartels. The biggest war of attrition that we, as citizens, have ever fought in our lives. This isn't like fighting the British. The militias are coming together to fight the fictional British. This would be like fighting the entire planet, trying to fight over the scraps, because they know that we are a paper tiger. The only people following the law anymore are the ones that are beholden to the law. That's it. The people who still respect law and order are the only ones. Everybody else is testing. The police have been defunded. What's left is very questionable in a lot of places. Two busloads, even if they're not militant, 2 busloads of fictional feral critters, barbarians, or even if they're not, 2 busloads is enough to completely wipe out a small town of all of its resources, even if they're peaceful. Let alone if even a couple of them decide to be a pains, or if there's a couple warlords that get a phone call that the little enclave is being set up. And yes, in this fictional universe, we're going to call them ferals. And that's just the way it goes. They're going to kill your cats and your dogs and your ducks and your geese, and then they're going to come after your cows and your horses. And you get your town together. A lot of them are not going to have the stomach to do what has to be done. And that should be taken into account, because they've been conditioned that anything you do will be extreme. Even calling them a certain name or referencing them a certain way, it's all going to be considered extreme. And given that, the most pragmatic approach would be to make sure those buses get turned right around, or that you've got other buses on hand to drive them right around. Assuming they're just like innocents and they're confused and they have no idea and they were lied to, which is still surprisingly common. So, but if they are ferals, which is the fictional name in this fictional universe that we're giving them, you have to be ready to speak the universal language, and you have to have your town understanding. And the problem is, again, going back to the optics, this has been buried so much that people do not believe that this is happening. They call it fear-mongering, right? So first they say it's not going on. And then when you show them that it's going on, they say it's an isolated incident, and then when you show them it's not an isolated incident, they say that you're fear-mongering. And you're not going to be able to convince those people. But as I've said in the past, there's a lot of lefty-loos that aren't far left. Remember, lefty-loo is like traditional liberals, which by today's standards are pretty conservative. They have all reached these conclusions. There's a lot of people that have migrated here legally, and there's a lot of people here on visas that have all reached the same conclusion. This country is ripe for invasion. And not only that, but we are being actively invaded. The SAFE Act is going to fail. It's not going to go through because the rhinos don't have the balls. And I made a prediction, at least I think I did, but I don't know. We as a country are seeing the final dividing lines between all of the lefty-loos openly moving to conservatives and all of the rhinos openly moving to the left. A certain person said another certain person was a raging warmonger, and now that person's moved over to their side. Everyone is showing their true colors. Everybody is being flushed out, and they're moving to their sides, and the lines are being drawn. And we are a paper tiger. We're a massively divided nation because we keep being gaslit like crazy. And the optics are being manipulated over and over and over and over and over. And even so many people that should know better just do not get it. And they almost look embarrassed once they finally see it. And it's like, you know what? Don't be embarrassed. Like, everybody's going to have their moment where they're going to have to wake up. And that's okay. You know, it's okay. And these cartels, this is just another advent of that, because they are emptying the prisons. They're sending over militaries. They're sending over warlords. And their whole job is to sow massive civil unrest and to chop this place up into pieces. They want to chop this place up into pieces because they know that there is no fight left in what would be a structured defense of this country. People are, you worried about martial law? Martial law, fictional martial law wouldn't last in this fictional universe that I'm talking about for one night. They don't have the weapons. They don't have the training. A lot of them are on meds and stuff that they may not even be combat ready. A lot of them aren't going to show up. So what are you going to do when you have like half a squad show up? Because the other half is either freaking out or melting down, or they've already got their own buddies and they're ready to set up their own thing. Martial law could have happened 4 years ago. It would have been icky. And you could have deployed National Guard 4 years ago and you could have restored order. That is not happening now. There is no National Guard. There is no martial law. There's not enough state troopers in this fictional parallel universe that I'm talking about. They're going to try to keep outlawing 3D burp stuff and switches and mags. It is too late. the only people that are going to comply are idiots, because it's just it's their last attempt to just try to disarm somebody. Like, they're not the gangs, which arguably aren't that strong comparatively to cartels. They're not disarming the gangs. They'll go disarm grandma. They're not disarming the gangs. They're not organized crime is bigger than it's ever been. The only reason there's not protests right now is because they don't need to. They can just sit and keep robbing the stores blind every single day, waiting for whatever their trigger is going to be. Whenever they just decide to do it, it's just going to be so massive that it's not going to matter anymore. In the fictional town that I'm always talking about, they've only got two squads, which is like 2 squads of riot cops, which is more than 0, which is what they had for a long time. But they used to have like 400 riot cops, 400 to 600 that they could activate, not counting state patrol, state police. Like, they used to have a really respectable force. I don't know where the money's going. I don't know where the money's gone. But it hasn't been gone to staffing them up. I mean, the scary thought is that they got caught up with all their recruitment and they don't have anybody to recruit. You can't pay people enough. Why? Because not only do they just get hung out to dry and they're completely hamstrung and the training is garbage, or not their entry training, but their continuing training. It's not, they have to pay for it themselves on their own time, blah, 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 blah. Like, they're just going to dissolve. It's going to be over in hours. And so somebody asked, why should I bother getting, an EMP shield style product for my vehicle when I know that I'd be the only one driving and that I would immediately get mobbed? And the answer is, you won't immediately get mobbed if you get out right away. The problem is these people in these apartments don't have anywhere to go. And that's what you have to keep in mind. You have to figure out where you're going to go now, and you're not going to have a lot of time to get there. It might not be that scary to go out and about the first night and get out. Don't do what everyone else is doing and run to the store. Get out, keep your vehicles gassed and get out, and hope you've been caching food and supplies somewhere, and hope you haven't cached them with somebody that's going to stab you in the back. But I'll tell you this much. I've been absolutely busting my ass on the homestead hardcore since the beginning of April. And I wouldn't even be able to feed 2 people for more than a couple days with the amount of food that we were able to do. A huge part of that learning curve is having tons and tons and tons of fertilized dirt. But the point is that, like, you have to decide who your friends are going to be now. Because it's not going to be the 3-letter agencies. They're up against another fiscal cliff in a few days. Both sides are gaslighting each other, even though they're both on the same side. I was watching a certain fictional senator, I think it was, that says, one side wants all the helping stuff, and the other side wants the military stuff, and in the end, they're both going to get it. They're both on the same team. They both argue like they're going to play hardball. They both sides always get what they want. We're 34, 35. I don't even know how many trillions of dollars in debt we are because it's exponentially increasing. And I haven't checked. I still suspect that interest rates are going to go down because I think they need a win going into the election. But the election's going to be a total disaster. And there aren't enough people left, I think, to even marshal up a response to it. One side is going to just be like, oh, well, it happened again, no surprise. And then the other side is going to riot because they do no matter what. And, well, because, and a lot of them, the person that they wanted to vote for decided to go to the beach and just not come back. And I think K-Bone is going to be out. And I think if anything we've learned from the last month and a half to 2 months is that we don't even need anybody in charge because the cabal takes care of everything. The fictional, the stuff, the fictional shadow group that just runs everything in this fictional universe. So, that the three letters aren't going to be able to function. You're not even going to have electricity. If there is food at all, you're going to be handed to it through a giant blast shield at the grocery store in little packets that you can come back and get every day, and you hope the cartels aren't there too. You have to prepare mentally and physically and tactically and strategically for what fighting a near-peer adversary is. And the biker gangs aren't going to come and fix your problems for you, not without expecting things in return that may or may not be any better or worse, and they're going to be spread really thin. And they're not the police. They're going to hold the little piece that they can hold and try to marshal everybody and hunker down, which is exactly what everybody else should be doing. But are you prepared to do that? Your subdivision's not going to last very long. You have to find somebody with land and go, look, honey, when the trigger is the trigger, we have to go. And you're not going to have a lot of time to throw everything together in the photo albums and blah, blah, blah. You've got a house full of tons and tons and tons and tons of great things that are going to be completely useless because you cannot defend your subdivision. Not against a cartel that wants it. And I can hear you down in the comments now. Oh, but you said, rioters and looters and stuff. It's like there is going to be, rioters and looters. And you are going to have a sort of a horde, zombie mentality. Yeah, you're definitely going to have to deal with that. And there's going to be starving children that you're going to want to give a little bit of food to. And those are all things too. But you have to realize those aren't like the end game issues. That's all going to dwindle you down. But a lot of that is like recon. They're going to be going back to the warlords, or the warlords are going to be shaking them down, and they're going to say, hey, which groups are putting up a fight? Which groups still have stuff? There's this amazing video game called Dead State. And, I've met the developers. I helped them test their game. I talked to them, I think, I think they had said a lot of the inspiration to the game was like what happened to her around Hurricane Katrina, because I think they were there at the time. And how that game plays out is like exactly how this would be. You know, the mobs go around until they get resisted, and then they go tell, you know, oh hey, this place is still holding out, they must have stuff. They tell the next biggest place and the next biggest place. Division is like that too. Division, another amazing series. The book series makes a lot more sense than the video games, but in Division 2 they have kind of the technical expertise to show it in kind of like video game form, where the patrols get stronger and stronger and you shore up your defenses, and eventually stronger and stronger patrols come. You always lose. That's what happens. That's what you have to eventually train and plan and prepare for. But that doesn't mean you just give up in like defeat. It means that that's what you have to train and plan and prepare for. That is what the other side is doing. You don't have to be evil like them, but you have to accept that that's the reality. And you have to adjust accordingly. You might be able to go hide out in the woods. I've heard that, oh, I can go hide out in the woods. Or a lot of people say that. I 100% believe you, but like, your family can't. So it's like, are you going to go do that when your whole family's dead? Or are you hoping that the woods are on the other side of your family? You know. But to do that, you have to do an area study. I heard a lot of people, I know this place better than anyone. Great. You have to be using that to your advantage to defend against near peer adversaries. That's why so many of the zombie Walking Dead, what a joke. Like, no, there is going to be near peer groups running around everywhere. You're not going to have to worry about mobs of zombies unless they're running and super strong. You're going to have near peer groups. Oh, but what about the good old boys? They're not going to do shit. They're not going to do shit because they're just going to get J-hooked and wiped out over and over again because they shoot their hunting rifle once a year. That's such horse shit. I get so sick and tired of hearing that. The rural areas aren't squared away at all. They've all been infiltrated, and all you have to do, if you don't believe me, is you can go pull up county by county by county, and you can see how they're voting. They're not united. They're not these bulwarks of conservatism. They've got rich mucky mucks because rural folks can't even afford to live in their own areas anymore, even in the suburban areas. You can't afford to live in your own suburban areas that you grew up in anymore. You've got people that are scraping by the skin of their teeth and the fact that they still have a family network. And then you've got riches who couldn't care less, who are ahead of the curve, except they're not planning to do anything about it. They just think they can hide and, hope someone bigger and badder comes, and then they can just criticize them later and maintain their own moral high ground. And then you've got everyone who's kind of like stuck in the middle, that they're right on the edge. They don't make quite enough to get ahead, but they're treading water, right? Those are those two categories the people who have been relying on their family, and the people who are treading water. Those are the people that you want to try to network with. The people that have the family networks probably aren't going to want to have anything to do with you because you're going to be a liability. But as people need help and reach out, there are opportunities to help. If you help them build a garden, it's one less homestead you're going to have to worry about. If you help them bolster up their fence, every little bit like that helps. You're slowly building a stronger community. It's going to be harder and harder and harder for people to work their way through. You're going to have more and more, potential fighting positions, and you start getting everyone on radios. You start being nicer to your neighbors, and hope that druggies don't move in, even though every area seems to have one. And, get an affordable drone if you can, so you can get recon and realize that when you're up against near-peer adversaries like cartels, they're going to have jammers, they're going to have drones, they're going to have cameras, they might have night vision, they're going to have optic, they're going to have scopes. Because they're going to be used to doing all of this without asking permission. Oh, it's illegal. It doesn't matter. They don't care. And, I don't know. I wish that this cartel thing was a bigger wake-up call. I feel, and I wish the mobs and the protests, and I wish these things were bigger wake-up calls. But I tell you what, everybody just keeps going back to their sports. But there isn't anybody to handle this anymore. If the 3 letters were powerful, and if they wanted to do something about this, and if this wasn't a part of the plan, they would squish them like a bug. And they would take the biggest, baddest one, and they would throw all their resources at it, and they would squish it like a bug. But they can't. Because they would take losses that they can't replenish. And it would tarnish their squeaky clean veneer. And this is part of the plan anyway, so why would they do that? And we realized this back in 2020 when Blue Lives Matter really quickly turned into Blue Lives turning on the conservatives and just throwing them to the wolves. And we realized we went from working where, you saw the cops laying down the law. And then all of a sudden, one day it all turned, suspiciously when all of the news stations suddenly turned off. And when the news stations turned back on, the vote flipped. And everything changed. And all those cops got let go because they wouldn't take the woohoo. So, you tell me how we're supposed to get through this. I used to have a thing, what if I'm wrong? There's no way out of this because there's no job. I was trying to think cartel stuff aside for a second. Let's pretend the cartels just decide to up and leave because somebody declares open season on them, and all of a sudden there's cartel hunting tags and they get ran ragged. Then all of a sudden the border gets super bolstered. Let's pretend. There's nothing we can produce here to climb our economy out of this, we would have to stop military spending, even though realistically we should be bolstering military spending right now because we're about to probably fight like 3 wars, fictional wars simultaneously. But and we don't make any of our own stuff, but so make the chips here and start making everything here again. Like that would be good, except we can't afford to pay our own people. Inflation's really bad, blah blah blah. But if we brought a bunch of nuke plants online somehow, we could build a bunch of data centers and we could like outsource data processing for AIs and, charge a bunch of money for it or something. Like that would be cool, but like the infrastructure doesn't support it. So there's no method for us to get there. And so all you're left with is that this is all intentionally designed to crash us. Interest rates, maybe they go down a little bit, then they're going to go through the roof because of how the whole T-bill thing is being ran, which I don't have the time or energy to explain treasury bonds right now. Look at gold. Gold's going through the roof. The stock market and crypto's going down. Like, we're heading towards a crash. When China hasn't even bought gold for a while, like they're expecting the crash too, because it's all going to go into gold. Everyone's going to sell the gold. The gold's going to crash, and then China buys it all. So there's no way out of this. It is all crashed on purpose so we can go to digital currency and so we can go to universal healthcare and universal basic income, and then you don't have to worry about how much food costs at the grocery store anymore because the costs are fixed. And when that happens, people are going to be begging for it. However, it's only going to be temporary. Every one of these things is only putting a bandage on, a volcano. And so all the civil unrest and then the cartels and stuff, the prisons being let out, the trafficking, the drugs, the fentanyl. We're being deliberately destabilized. When the normies wake up, it's gonna be horrible. It's gonna be absolute chaos. And if you don't count people with diabetes and other, that need their blood pressure medicine, like, the whole point of all this is for a massive die-off. That's the whole point. Like, the think tanks have deliberately designed it to happen this way. And with the 2 different types of mass casualty events that go on, the ones where they're randomly walking around and the ones that they off themselves, the 2 think tanks that are going at it with each other with the 2 different mind control hoo-hoos that keep causing these mass casualty events. This is all designed to just destabilize and weaken us and pit us against each other until there's just nothing left. And the military-industrial complex is going to ride it till the rails come off. But once this starts, there isn't anybody to build their stuff anymore either. There isn't anyone to build battleships or littoral ships or carriers or anti-drone defense anything. It's going to be like Ukraine, but worse. There isn't going to be any manufacturing. Well, I guess unless you're in China. If China's really smart, they won't attack Taiwan. And then they will be the major weapons manufacturer for the whole planet. And all of the weapons systems stonks are going to be worthless. If there even is a stock market at all after that. You don't think that can happen? That can happen tomorrow. Crypto is like super useful. But if you zoom out, you'll see that it can go back down to that. A lot of the crypto market is propped up by the banks. And once the cartels come out of the fully come out of the closet, and the 3 letters don't come smack them down, it is going to be an absolute bloodbath. They're testing the waters right now, and nobody's doing anything about it. I want you to think about that. I want you to let that sink in. And try to think how you navigate your lifestyle and your circles of friends and what's left of your circle of family, and go, what do I need to do when there are literal warlords running around, which I thought were, in third world countries, and you hear about barbecue and you think it's a joke. That could happen here tomorrow. We could get carved up tomorrow. And it will be hell on earth. The things they do. It's horrible. It's unspeakable horror. But they're like, come back to the office. Oh, employment's up to pre-pandemic levels. What did they just say the other day? Tourism is up to pre-pandemic levels. There's 100 teeny tiny cute businesses that are open. So we can have Comic-Con. Blah, blah, blah. It's like, dude, nothing is open. Everything's boarded up. There's gangs everywhere. There's drugs everywhere. There's tents everywhere. Like, open your eyes. Get the training you need now. Get the defensive tools you need now. Get your family and your friends on board now. There's still a little bit of time left. It might not be bad right away where you are. But what I'm telling you is, for a lot of cities, it has been the apocalypse for years. I want to say since 2007. I'm trying to remember the exact year that it really started. We have been in the collapse since around 2007. We're right at the edge now, again. And there's not many buttons left that can be pressed. Even if the person that you want to be president becomes president, there is no way to stuff the ferals back in the cage. And you notice when that gets brought up, how do you send them all back? Oh, you deputize so-and-so, you let everybody do such and such. Most people are idiots. They don't have the wherewithal to be able to tell the difference between someone that belongs there and someone who doesn't. Unless it just turns into another big race-baiting clusterfuck. And maybe that's what they want. I don't know. I've got neighbors that don't speak English that great. However, I bet you if I talk to them, they want to be safe just like everybody else does. They don't want people eating their animals. It depends on what group moves in. But they're all going to be bad. I don't see or have I heard of a scenario where they're like, yay, this group moved in and everything is better now. No. Every group of ferals, you name it, all bad. And there's some speculation as to why they're bad, why their cultures are incompatible. But I can tell you one thing. They all see us as weak and pathetic and disorganized. And the only people keeping us from being ready is ourselves. So go do something to get yourself ready. Don't do anything crazy, because this is all fictional. I'm talking about the fictional universe now. But if this was all real, what would you do? Would you go back to watching sports? Or would you try to work on your garden? Or would you try to talk to your family? Would you go look at the real news and try to really wake up? You know, realize that most of the YouTubers that you're watching, all the celebrity YouTubers, are all psyops. We don't have a lot of time left. And even if the person that you want to get in gets in for president, it's probably not going to buy us very much time. And every little bit of time we buy ourselves is just the cliff getting higher. So I think with that, to just be respectful of everybody's time, I'm going to cut this one short. Or not cut this one short, I'm going to cut this one. And so yeah, let's play a little song, and then we'll wrap up.
The best music from all the latest bands, and you don't want to pay for it. Paying is dumb. Then you want waterproof shoes that play music from your honest bands. Use code CityCake10 for 10% off your hot new waterproof music shoes.
This is the part of the show where I talk about an indie author. I highlight an indie author, one that I highly recommend. And this episode's is called The Gates to the Galaxies, a sci-fi experience, the Phoenix Experiment, as told by Jay Dalton. And to me, this is a really interesting take on the sci-fi genre. It is what starts as a very simple, straightforward story, quickly turns into a sort of a three-way tug-of-war, a three-faction tug-of-war, and it was very easy to follow. The pacing was really good. The writing was extremely competent. And I was shocked that this story had so few reviews. I kept having to go back and check over and over again, expecting, just kidding, this story had thousands of reviews, but it doesn't. If you like sci-fi, I highly suggest checking this out. There's a lot of strategy behind why the characters do what they do. The characters are very well fleshed out. Why they exist, their purposes for existing, and their purposes for their conflicts are all very believable. And I usually don't get to read stories where I'm like, actually, this is like really good. This is it was an extremely competently written story. And I highly suggest it. I usually think of a bunch of things to say later, but I don't have notes. I am so blessed and lucky that there are indie authors out there that write at such insanely high calibers. It's just great. And so, again, The Gates to the Galaxies, a sci-fi experience, the Phoenix Experiment, as told by Jay Dalton. I'll leave a link. Highly recommend it. I don't just say that. I read a lot of stuff. And just highly recommend it. So, with that, I want to thank y'all for hanging out, and in these podcasts moving forward, I'm going to try to be more respectful of people's time. I mistakenly thought that people would naturally just listen to the podcast in pieces if it was too long for them. I don't understand people's really mentality and behavior. I have to sit in traffic for long periods of time, so I really don't care if a podcast is long, because I'm stuck in the car, or I'm stuck doing whatever, or I'm stuck in bed. But all the feedback I got, said, keep them close to an hour. And so I'm going to, even if I have a lot of topics and they're really beefy topics, I'm just going to do my best. And I don't get to do these a lot, and I'm just going to keep trying to take notes. So if there's anything you want to talk about, I wanted to talk about layoffs. The layoffs are insane right now. The job market is toast. If you're interested in that, let me know. If you're interested in batteries, let me know. Grid down. I think we're going to be facing a massive, massive grid down. If you want to talk about that more, let me know. City Prepping just did an amazing video showing what step up and I think it's called 2-phase battery systems are. Like, he's just nailing it. He moved, which is a blessing. He has a literal garage full of batteries, every single battery on the market basically, and he's explaining everything that you'll ever need to know. You want me to talk more about batteries? Let me know. And with that, I will let y'all go and check out my books. I worked really hard to update the bunker codes within the last couple weeks. So if you've never checked out the bunker codes before, or if it's been a long time, I've been steadily keeping it updated. So I'm super, super proud of bunker codes. And look forward to my art book, and look forward to another album. If you like the last album, if you like these silly songs, got another album coming. So I will talk to y'all later. Bye-bye.
Honey, why you calling me so late? It's kinda hard to talk right now. Honey, why you crying? Is everything okay? I gotta whisper cause I can't be too loud. Oh well, my girl's in the next room. Sometimes I wish she was you. I guess we never really moved on. It's really good to hear your voice saying my name. It sounds so sweet, coming from the lips of an angel. Hearing those words, it makes me weak. And I never wanna say goodbye, but I'm gonna make it hard to be faithful with the lips of an angel. It's funny that you're calling me tonight, and yes, I've jumped through you too. Does he know you're talking to me? Will it start a fight? No, I don't think she has a clue. Oh well, my girl's in the next room. Sometimes I wish she was you. I guess we never really moved on. It's really good to hear your voice saying my Does he know you're talking to me? Will it start a fight? No, I don't think she has a clue. Oh well, my girl's in the next room. Sometimes I wish she was you. I guess we never really moved on. It's really good to hear your voice saying my name, it sounds so sweet. Coming from the lips of an angel. Hearing those words, it makes me weak. And I never wanna say goodbye. Girl, you're making hard to be faithful with the lips of an angel. But ever wanna say goodbye. But girl, you make it hard to be faithful with the lips of an angel.